This is your daily scripture for March 26th. My name is Henry Loke. This is God's Feeding Station. It's an honor to be with you today. We are continuing on in the book of Deuteronomy today, Deuteronomy chapters 5 and 6. And Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the statutes and the rules that I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and be careful to do them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb. Not with our fathers did the Lord make this covenant, but with us, who are all of us here alive today. The Lord spoke with you face to face at the mountain, out of the midst of the fire, while I stood between the Lord and you at that time, to declare to you the word of the Lord, for you were afraid because of the fire, and you did not go up into the mountain. He said, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, you, or your son, or your daughter, or your male servant, or your female servant, or your ox, or your donkey, or any of your livestock, or the sojourner who is within your gates, that your male servant and your female servant may rest as well as you. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, as the Lord your God commanded you, that your days may be long, and that it may go well with you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, and you shall not commit adultery, and you shall not steal, and you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, and you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, and you shall not desire your neighbor's house, his field, or his male servant, or his female servant, his ox or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words the Lord spoke to all your assembly, at the mountain out of the midst of the fire, the cloud, and the thick darkness, with a loud voice. And he added no more, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone, and gave them to me. And as soon as you heard the voice out of the midst of the darkness, while the mountain was burning with fire, you came near to me, all the heads of your tribes and your elders. And you said, Behold, the Lord our God has shown us his glory and greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the midst of the fire. This day we have seen God speak with man, and man still live. Now therefore, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of the Lord our God any more, we shall die. For who is there of all flesh that has heard the voice of the living God speaking out of the midst of fire as we have, and has still lived? Go near and hear all that the Lord our God will say, and speak to us all that the Lord our God will speak to you, and we will hear and do it. And the Lord heard your words when you spoke to me. And the Lord said to me, I have heard the words of this people, which they have spoken to you. They are right in all that they have spoken. Oh, that they had such a heart as this always, to fear me and to keep all my commandments, that it might go well with them and with their descendants forever. Go and say to them, Return to your tents. But you, stand here by me, and I will tell you the whole commandment and the statutes and the rules that you shall teach them, that they may do them in the land that I am giving them to possess. You shall be careful, therefore, to do as the Lord your God has commanded you. You shall not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You shall walk in all the way that the Lord your God has commanded you, that you may live, and that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land that you shall possess. Now this is a commandment, the statutes and the rules that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land to which you are going over, to possess it, that you may fear the Lord your God, you and your son's son, by keeping all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, all the days of your life, and that your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, that it may go well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And when the Lord your God brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you, with great and good cities that you did not build, and houses full of all good things that you did not fill, and cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant. And when you eat and are full, then take care lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. It is the Lord your God you shall fear. Him you shall serve. By his name you shall swear. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the peoples who are around you, for the Lord your God in your midst is a jealous God, lest the anger of the Lord your God be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not put the Lord your God to the test, as you tested him at Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you. And you shall do what is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may go well with you, and that you may go in and take possession of the good land that the Lord swore to give to your fathers, by thrusting out all your enemies from before you, as the Lord has promised. When your son asks you in time to come, what is the meaning of the testimonies and the statutes and the rules that the Lord our God has commanded you? Then shall you say to your son, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And the Lord showed signs and wonders, great and grievous, against Egypt and against Pharaoh and all his household before our eyes. And he brought us out from there, that he might bring us in and give us the land that he swore to give our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as we are this day. And it will be righteousness for us, if we are careful to do all this commandment before the Lord our God, as he has commanded us. Luke 7:11-35. Soon afterward he went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a great crowd went with him. As he drew near to the gate of the town, behold, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a considerable crowd from the town was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said to her, do not weep. Then he came up and touched the bear, and the bear stood still. And he said, young man, I say to you, arise. And the dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized them all, and they glorified God, saying, a great prophet has arisen among us, and God has visited his people. And this report about him spread through the whole of Judea and all the surrounding country. The disciples of John reported all these things to him. And John, calling 2 of his disciples to him, sent them to the Lord, saying, are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? And when the man had come to him, they said, John the Baptist has sent us to you, saying, are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? In that hour he healed many people of diseases and plagues and evil spirits, and on many who were blind he bestowed sight. And he answered them, go and tell John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, the poor have good news preached to them, and blessed is the one who is not offended by me. When John's messengers had gone, Jesus began to speak to the crowds concerning John. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? What then did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft clothing? Behold, those who are dressed in splendid clothing and live in luxury are in king's courts. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before your face, who will prepare your way before you. I tell you, among those born of women, none is greater than John. Yet the one who is least in the kingdom of God is greater than he. When all the people heard this, and the tax collectors too, they declared God just, having been baptized with the baptism of John. But the Pharisees and the lawyers rejected the purpose of God for themselves, not having been baptized by him. To what then shall I compare the people of this generation, and what are they like? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to one another, We played the flute for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not weep. For John the Baptist has come, eating no bread and drinking no wine, and you say he has a demon. The Son of Man has come eating and drinking, and you say, Look at him, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. Yet wisdom is justified by all her children. Psalm 68, 19 through 35. Blessed be the Lord, who daily bears up. God is our salvation. Our God is a God of salvation, and to God, the Lord, belong deliverances from death. But God will strike the heads of his enemies, the hairy crown of him who walks in his guilty ways. The Lord said, I will bring them back from Bashan. I will bring them back from the depths of the sea, that you may strike your feet in their blood, that the tongues of your dogs may have their portion from the foe. Your procession is seen, O God, the procession of my God, my King, into the sanctuary. The singers in front, the musicians last, between them virgins playing tambourines. Bless God in the great congregation, the Lord, O you who are of Israel's fountain. There is Benjamin, the least of them, in the lead, the princes of Judah in their throng, the princes of Zebulun, the princes of Naphtali. Summon your power, O God, the power, O God, by which you have worked for us. Because of your temple at Jerusalem, kings shall bear gifts to you. Rebuke the beasts that dwell among the reeds, the herd of bulls with the calves of the peoples. Trample underfoot those who lust after tribute. Scatter the peoples who delight in war. Nobles shall come from Egypt. Cush shall hasten to stretch out her hands to God. O kingdoms of the earth, sing to God. Sing praises to the Lord. To him who rides in the heavens, the ancient heavens, behold, he sends out his voice, his mighty voice. Ascribe power to God, whose majesty is over Israel, and whose power is in the skies. Awesome is God from his sanctuary, the God of Israel. He is the one who gives power and strength to his people. Blessed be God. Proverbs 11:29 through 31. Whoever troubles his own household will inherit the wind, and the fool will be servant to the wise of heart. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and whoever captures souls is wise. If the righteous is repaid on earth, how much more the wicked and the sinner. I'm going to get political again today, and I'm sorry. But the last part of the reading in Luke today. Well, first off, let me back up a little bit. So Jesus raises a widow's son today. I think this is multifaceted, and I don't have a commentary in front of me right now, so I'm kind of winging this, well, hopefully not winging it. Hopefully the Spirit is imparting some wisdom here, but I think Jesus understands that, we've talked about where widows stand in society in the past. They have no say. Oftentimes they live in squalor, poor, having nobody to care for them. And with the woman losing her son, that is where she would end up. I think Jesus sees that. I think he realizes this. I think he has compassion on her because of this. And I also think this is another chance for him to bring glory and honor to God, to show his power to the people, to say, look, I am who I say I am. So all these things are encapsulated in this. And so he gives the widow back her son. And then messengers come from John. And it's interesting that John sends two, because there is this, and we've read this in the Old Testament, where you cannot witness anything just by one person. It's got to be two people or more, right? And so John sends two. And they ask Jesus, look, are you the Messiah? Are you the coming one? And I'm assuming John is in prison at this point, and maybe he wasn't the kind of Messiah that John was expecting. John, as great a man as he was still a man, and maybe he kind of fell into a little bit the thought process of Messiah coming and kicking Rome out and having Israel raised up to a place of prominence from a political perspective, but for whatever reason, or it could be just that if John's in prison, he's just having doubts now, which happens to the best of us in trying times. And so John sends two people, and it's interesting how Jesus answers them, because while they're there, it says in this hour, he's doing all these great things. He's healing people. He's driving out evil spirits. He's healing the blind. And he's doing this while these two people are there. And so rather than give them an answer of, yes, I am who I say I am, Jesus says, look, you go tell John what you've seen and heard. Right? Be a witness to what you've seen. That'll be enough. Right? And again, it's kind of that a good tree bears good fruit. Right? So the fruit that Jesus is bearing here is unlike anything anybody's ever seen. And so that's what he gives the two people, the two witnesses, to take back to John. And then he talks about John and how great he is, and all. But and this is where I'm going to get political, so I apologize. But this last paragraph, John comes, he fasts, and he's not eating bread, and he's not drinking wine, and people say he has a demon. And then Jesus comes and he eats and he drinks with tax collectors and sinners, and they say he's a glutton and a drunkard. Right? How many times have we seen this, especially now, where people, people accusing, and this is basically Democrats and Republicans, they're pointing the fingers at one another, and they do the same thing themselves, right? They do the same things themselves. And I so often I come across as an apologist for Donald Trump. Trust me, I wish I were not forced into that position, right? But there are so many things that the other side of the aisle, well, both sides of the aisle, really, because I think both Democrats and Republicans have issue with him, and I get it. I mean, for God's sake, can somebody please just take his phone from him so he can't tweet anymore? But having said that, they point the finger at him for doing things, and you look at their own corruption, and this is kind of what I was talking about yesterday. You look at the fruit they bear. You look at them say the same things, right? And the hypocrisy is just rampant. And, God, there was this awful shooting at Christchurch, right, at this mosque down in New Zealand. And around 50 people were killed. And there's a video coming on this at some point. But, folks, this is what sin brings. This isn't a gun issue. This is a sin issue, right? And I'm not, it's just, we should not be surprised by this. Because when you don't have God involved in every fabric of society, this is what you get. This is what sin brings, right? And when people are so lost and so far removed from God, these are some of the acts that you get, right? But as tragic as that was, I read an article that, I think it was Somalia, 26 Christians were killed last week by Muslims coming in. And I'm not trying to pick on Muslims, that's not the point. But there's 26 Christians who were killed, and you hear nothing about that, right? So where is the fairness and the balance in this, right? The press wants to purport themselves as being, fair and balanced. That's a Fox News thing. How fair and balanced were they when all these things were going on in Iraq and Afghanistan and these illegal wars, and nobody said a word. Nobody questioned it. The New York Times was all gung-ho for it, with no evidence whatsoever that anything, because it was all under the guise of 9/11, right? It's not fair and balanced. And they're not honest. I'm sorry, they're not. But here's my deal. We see this, and here's where I'm going with this. We see this, because I don't want to make this a political podcast. That's not my point. But we see this, and yet we keep going back for more, right? We keep trusting these people rather than allowing God to open our eyes and give us discernment and see things for what they are, and then turn away from these things that are not honest and do not bear good fruit. We continue to go back and eat the bad fruit. What are we doing? What are we doing? Right? This is classic out of Luke today. John the Baptist does one thing, and they call him names. Jesus comes and does the opposite, and that doesn't satisfy them either. Right? And it's the same thing, on the political side. Democrats will do something good that the Republicans have been bantering about, and then when they do the good thing, the Republicans will point. They won't give them credit. It's the same the other way, right? Right now, it's a Republican in office. Okay, so whatever it may be, if there's anything good that he's doing, right, that the Democrats will be yelling about, when he does a good thing, they won't give him credit for it. Why do we get involved in this? Why do we keep getting sucked into this? Right? I just scratch my head going, because I know people are smarter than this, right? And if people are following God, God, this Holy Spirit has to be giving you discernment. Has to be. Right? So why do we keep getting sucked into this? Let's come together and fix the problems in our corners of the world and stop worrying about what's going on in Washington and just do what we can do to follow God's commandments. Right? That's what he's talking about in Deuteronomy. Right? Do these things and be blessed. Again, not prosperity gospel. That's not my point. Building up treasures in heaven. Do these things, obey my commandments, and you will be blessed. Well, what are his commandments? Love your neighbor as yourself. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, will. Whatever term you want to put on it. Love God with everything you have. Love your neighbor as yourself. Are we doing that? Or are we just getting caught up in all this other stuff that's not bearing good fruit for the kingdom of God? All right, I apologize for going on the political rant, but I'm trying to point out that don't get caught up in the hypocrisy, right? Put on God's glasses and see things clearly. Ask God for discernment and ask him to reveal things to you and expose the truth with grace and mercy, because there are some things that he'll give you if you're not careful that you really don't need to know. Trust me, I've been down that road. But we need to see with spiritual eyes and hear with spiritual ears and love with a Jesus-shaped heart. That is the only way we're going to bear good fruit for the kingdom and come together and do what needs to be done to help others who are in need. All right, I'm done. Thanks for listening. I hope you're having a great day, and God willing, we'll talk again tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.